Greetings again, photography pals, and today I've had the opportunity to review Canon's RF 35mm f1.4 L VCM lens, one in a series of what Canon call hybrid lenses, designed for both still photography and video shooting. Its price of $1,500 or a very expensive £1,680 here in the UK will make it a pricey option, but actually original manufacturers' 35mm f1.4 offerings tend to be very expensive as they're normally very high quality and not easy to design. I'd like to thank Canon UK for loaning me this lens for a week or two for testing, but as usual, this is a totally independent review and they've had no input into the video whatsoever. The lens is about the normal size for an optic in its class, but being made mostly of high quality plastic, it's not heavy to handle. The lens is well weather sealed, including a weather sealing gasket around the rear mount. Then comes an aperture ring, which turns completely smoothly and can be locked in or out of automatic mode. Due to the way Canon's mount system currently works, this aperture ring will only work when shooting in video mode and not when shooting stills, except on the new R1 and R5 Mark II cameras, where it works with both, as well as with any other camera designed in 2024 or later, apparently. It's possible that there may be future firmware upgrades for older Canon cameras to get this working in stills mode as well. It's just a quirk of the RF mount system. Next, on the lens's body, we see a customizable button with an auto manual focus switch and a switch to lock the aperture ring in or out of automatic mode. Then we get quite a broad rubberized manual focus ring, which turns very smoothly and works responsively with the focus motor. As you can see here, the lens suffers from almost no focus breathing at all, useful for video work. As for the autofocus system, well, the voice coil motor makes it work silently, accurately, and basically instantaneously, with no trouble tracking subjects. This is Canon at their very best here, and just as well considering how much money the lens costs. In front of that focus ring, we get one of Canon's customizable control rings with gentle clicks to it. I'm glad that thing is at the end of the lens, out of the way, as it's something I never use myself, but I know that some other people do. If you like your aperture rings to work with clicks instead of working smoothly, then simply set this in your camera's menu to control your aperture. The lens comes with a detachable rear bayonet style gel filter holder, as you can see, for anyone who really likes their gel filters. The front of the lens has a 67mm filter thread. It comes with a plastic lockable lens hood, which is a fairly generous size for a 35mm lens, and it does not have its own image stabilization. Overall, the lens is built fantastically well here, and electronically it functions perfectly for both stills and video work. How about image quality then? Let's start by taking a look on my full frame camera, a Canon EOS R5. In-camera corrections are turned on for this test. In the middle of the image, picture quality is razor sharp with excellent contrast and no trace of any colour fringing. Over in the corners, image quality is noticeably softer but still very good overall. Stop down to f2 or f2.8 for small improvements in sharpness and contrast, and at f4 and f5.6 those corners are almost perfect. The lens stays this sharp down to f11, where softness from diffraction begins to kick in. Overall, it's a great performance here, although I have to say, I think I've seen 35mm lenses with slightly sharper corner image quality than this at f1.4, for example, Sony's 35mm G Master option. Well, anyway, let's test it on an APS-C camera now, my 32.5MP Canon EOS R7. At f1.4, in the middle of the image, again, we get amazing sharpness and contrast, although the extra resolution of the APS-C sensor is revealing just a touch of purple fringing here on contrasting edges. Stop down to f2 for a perfectly clean picture. Anyway, let's open back up to f1.4 and take a look over in the image corners. We're seeing a bit more softness this time at f1.4. Stop down to f2 for a tiny improvement, f2.8 for a bigger improvement, and to f4 for essentially perfect corner sharpness. This time on the higher resolution sensor, it's when you stop down to f8 that we begin to see softness due to diffraction. So, on an APS-C camera, overall, I really was hoping to see more corner sharpness, especially considering the lens's high price, even if you do bear in mind how brutally demanding the R7's sensor is. Well, anyway, let's go back to full frame, bypass in-camera corrections by shooting in RAW, and take a look at distortion and vignetting. Vignetting is high at f1.4, but spreads quite gradually across the image frame, so at least you don't notice it too much. What you will notice in your RAW images though is some very ugly barrel distortion. Make sure you're correcting that under all circumstances. I suspect that strong in-camera corrections could be a part of this lens's slightly softer corner image quality at f1.4. As you would expect, stop down to f2 or f2.8 for brighter image corners. Next, close-up image quality, and this thing can focus down to a pretty handy 28 centimeters. At f1.4, close-up sharpness is good enough, but contrast is a little weak. Stop down to f2 for a major improvement, and at f2.8, close-up image quality is now perfect. Let's see how the lens works against bright lights now, and the answer is averagely well. We are seeing flaring here of different kinds, but at least it's not too opaque. While we're working in the dark, let's take a look for coma and sunstars. The good news here is that coma smearing is basically negligible at f1.4. Stop down to f2 and anything that was there is now gone. Well, let's look for sunstars. They begin to emerge quite subtly at f5.6. At f8 they're a little stronger, but only at f11 and f16 do they get quite nicely defined. Next, bokeh. The lens can get you some quite nicely out of focus backgrounds here at f1.4, and those backgrounds look lovely and soft to me. However, highlights do have quite a strong cat's eye shape to them in the image corners. And finally, related to bokeh comes longitudinal chromatic aberration. It's noticeable at f1.4, still hanging around at f2, but at f2.8 it's finally gone. Overall, the Canon RF 35mm f1.4 L VCM is a generally very nice lens, their best 35mm optic ever, although I did have slightly mixed feelings about its corner sharpness at f1.4 and that nasty hidden distortion. Oh well, at least it's corrected well. The lens is a little overpriced I think, especially here in the UK, but still it's the best 35 on the system and a very nice option for video work, so it certainly does come recommended. Okay, that was fun. I wonder if manufacturers will ever go back to correcting distortion problems optically. It seems like no one's interested in correcting that anymore these days. Anyway, thanks for watching everyone. My usual reminder, check out the playlists on my channel to find the right lens reviews for your camera system. And if you'd like to support the work I'm doing in producing these sponsorship-free reviews, then check out my Patreon page, where supporters get all kinds of exclusive bonus content. Ciao for now, everyone.